Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Duan Ling Tian laughed in his heart when he heard the voice transmission of the two little pythons. Sure enough, these two little fellows were still unconvinced of the little gold mouse's strength. When he recalled the content of the voice transmission of the little black python with a voice of a young boy, Duan Ling Tian's heart jerked. We were able to communicate with Big Sister Shui Nai using voice transmission since we were at the void prying stage. This was the words spoke by the little black python. Under his curiosity, Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force stretched out to sweep towards the two little pythons. Right at this moment, Duan Ling Tian noticed that when his spiritual force still hadn't touched the two little pythons yet, a strand of mysterious and unfathomable energy stretched out from the complicated striations on their bodies, and it blocked his spiritual force. This caused his spiritual force to be unable to touch the bodies of the two little pythons, let alone detect their cultivations. Duan Ling Tian quickly noticed as well that the two little pythons seemed to have no knowledge whatsoever of the energy that stretched out from the complicated striations on their bodies, and this was something he was able to discern from their reactions. The golden striations on Little Black's body and the silver striations on Little White's body. I felt they were extraordinary all those years ago. Now they're actually able to stretch out a mysterious energy to block my spiritual force. Duan Ling Tian's heart shook, and he was shocked in his heart. What are your cultivations now? Who's more formidable? Duan Ling Tian asked curiously. Big brother, I'm more formidable. I'm more formidable. The little black python's voice of a young boy entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears first. Big brother, I'm already at the third level of the void initiation stage. Little White is only at the second level of the void initiation stage. She isn't as formidable as I am. Whereas the little white python drooped her head and didn't respond to Duan Ling Tian's question. Duan Ling Tian hurriedly consoled. All right, Little White. Your natural talent isn't inferior to Little Black, and you'll surely be able to chase up two Little Blacks soon. The little white python raised her tiny head when she heard this, and then she lightly rubbed the back of Duan Ling Tian's hand. Big brother, I'll work hard. I'll surely surpass Little Black. Duan Ling Tian had a complicated gaze when he heard Little White's solemn promise. Although he'd known since long ago that Little Black and Little White would possess extraordinary accomplishments from following Han Xuanai, he never imagined that the two little fellows would actually have already broken through to the void initiation stage. Moreover, it was the second and third level of the void initiation stage. They'd completely thrown the little gold mouse into the distance. Little Gold, where exactly are you now? Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but think of the little gold mouse, and he felt a wave of worry. Duan Ling Tian, you aren't choosing yet? There's not much time left. Suddenly, Su Li arrived by Duan Ling Tian's side, and he reminded Duan Ling Tian who was teasing the two little pythons. There's a time limit. Duan Ling Tian was stunned. King Yong said earlier that he would give us half an hour of time, said Su Li. Duan Ling Tian nodded, and he started to go around the treasure vault. What treasure vault? It's all a pile of junk. I'm not choosing anymore. I'm not choosing anymore. Right at this moment, Han Xuanai's voice suddenly sounded out, and it caused Duan Ling Tian to be unable to help but laugh bitterly. This little ancestor had an extraordinary background, and it was even likely that she was from a formidable power in the foreign lands. It was understandable that she who possessed such a background would not take a fancy to the things within the treasure vault of the Darkstone Empire. On the other hand, the corners of the mouths of Su Li and the other young geniuses twitched. Junk. They didn't even have the chance to choose a second treasure now. King Yong had given this young girl the authority to take whatever she wanted and how many she wanted, yet she actually rejected them and didn't want a single treasure? Comparisons between people are truly odious. The group of young geniuses couldn't help but sigh with emotion. King Yong instead couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he heard the young girl's words. When he made the promise earlier, he felt a wave of fear after it as he was worried the young girl would take away all the contents in the entire treasure vault. Now, all the treasures within the treasure vault were rejected by the young girl, and at the same time that he had a complicated feeling, he felt slightly delighted. At the same time, he realized even more about how the young girl wasn't simple. On the other side, Duan Ling Tian had searched for a while, and he didn't notice anything he wanted particularly. In the end, he chose a weapons refinement material. This weapons refinement material was able to be used to refine a grade 5 spirit weapon. The reason Duan Ling Tian chose it was because he didn't have anything to choose, so he took it as something to keep in preparation. Half an hour of time swiftly passed. Duan Ling Tian and the others had each chosen a treasure, and they followed behind King Yong to leave this pavilion that served as the treasure vault. Big brother Ling Tian, are all of you going to the Dark Han dynasty next? Han Xuanai followed by Duan Ling Tian's side like a curious baby. The gaze Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai now was completely different. Who knew if she really was a maiden of Heavenly Mountain? When he thought of how he might have been called Big Brother by such an existence, Duan Ling Tian felt his scalp go numb and a chill run down his spine. This, you have to ask King Yong. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath and replied. Instantly, Han Xuanai looked at King Yong. Uncle Red Mole, when are all of you going to the Dark Han dynasty? Little girl, you plan to follow us. King Yong felt a wave of powerlessness in his heart when he faced the yellow-clothed young girl before him. Yet he still worked hard to squeeze out a trace of a smile on his face. Right, I'll go wherever Big Brother Ling Tian goes. Han Xuanai nodded like a chick pecking grains, and she was extremely jubilant. After King Yong realized he was unable to get rid of this young girl, he sighed. We're leaving now. At the same time, the gaze he shot at Duan Ling Tian had a slight expression of wonder. He was extremely curious about how Duan Ling Tian had gotten to know this terrifying young girl. Duan Ling Tian, who's she? Duan Ling Tian received Su Li's voice transmission. He knew that the she Su Li was asking about was Han Xuanai. I don't know either. Duan Ling Tian replied via voice transmission, and his tone contained slight bitterness mixed within. You don't know? Then she calls you Big Brother? Su Li was slightly speechless. I was acquainted with her a few years ago. According to my judgment, her identity is extremely extraordinary, and she ought to be from the foreign lands. Duan Ling Tian replied via voice transmission. Foreign lands. Su Li's pupils constricted, and then he sent a voice transmission. No wonder King Yong was so courteous towards her. Looks like it ought to be because she told King Yong of her identity, or perhaps King Yong had guessed her identity. Perhaps. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Han Xuanai joined Duan Ling Tian's group of 10. They followed behind King Yong and the two old men to soar up into the sky. Over there, King Yong brought along the two old men and Duan Ling Tian's group of 11 to head towards the east. After a short moment, they'd left the imperial palace and left the imperial city. A lofty and enormous mountain appeared ahead. Meanwhile, King Yong stopped moving, whereas Duan Ling Tian and the others stopped along with him. Right when Duan Ling Tian and the others were bewildered about why King Yong would bring them here. Rumble. The lofty and enormous mountain ahead trembled, and it shook before the eyes of Duan Ling Tian and the others. Whoosh. Right at this moment, an exceedingly enormous figure shot into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it stood between the clouds before heading towards Duan Ling Tian's group. Roar! A demon beast that was enormous like a mountain appeared before the eyes of Duan Ling Tian and the others, and then it roared into the sky, emitting a deafening loud roar. For a time, the clouds and mist in the horizon were shocked to dispersal by its voice, whereas, amongst Duan Ling Tian's group, all the 8th level of the void prying stage martial artists, including Long Yun, couldn't help but go pale. Obviously, they were affected by the loud roar of the demon beast. Now, Duan Ling Tian had seen it clearly. The demon beast before him was a tiger-type demon beast, its body enormous like a large mountain. When looked at from afar, it was like a tiger with an enormous mountain as its back, and its body was covered in fur that were like flames. This demon beast. Under his curiosity, Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force stretched out with intent to scan this demon beast's strength. Right at this moment, a voice transmission followed along his spiritual force to enter into his ears. Little fellow, your strength isn't bad. You're merely at the 7th level of the void prying stage, yet you're actually able to withstand my roar that contained origin energy. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force was completely dispersed, That's a third eye. Duan Ling Tian, who was observing in detail, quickly noticed that between the brows of this enormous demon beast, a crack had suddenly split open, and a peculiar eye appeared before him. In the blink of an eye, this eye closed back up once again. 3 eyes, and he's able to see through my cultivation with a single glance. Duan Ling Tian gasped, and the lifetime worth of memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor flashed within his mind as he intended to find out what exactly was this demon beast. Before long, he found the answer. According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, the demon beast before him ought to be 3-eyed flame tiger. Duan Ling Tian's though hadn't finished emerging when he heard Han Xuanai's rather surprised voice. Xuanai is actually able to recognize it? Duan Ling Tian was surprised. Earlier, he'd found the records related to the 3-eyed flame tiger from the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor. The 3-eyed flame tiger was a type of demon beast with an extremely formidable strength. A mature 3-eyed flame tiger even had the chance to advance into the void interpretation stage. It belonged to the ranks of kings amongst the various demon beasts below demons. So long as the third eye of the 3-eyed flame tiger is opened, then with a single glance, it's able to see through the cultivation any human or demon beast with a cultivation below it. Earlier, it had precisely relied on its third eye to see through my cultivation. The bewilderment in Duan Ling Tian's eyes had completely vanished. It's a pity. Han Xuanai looked at the distant 3-eyed flame tiger like a little adult, and she criticized it. Your bloodline isn't pure. In this entire lifetime of yours, you'll only be at the 9th level of the void initiation stage. Wanting to advance a step further is difficult. Han Xuanai's words had infuriated the 3-eyed flame tiger. Roar! The 3-eyed flame tiger shook its head that was like a small hill, and its enormous eyes that seemed as if they were burning flames stared fixedly at Han Xuanai. What? Big guy, you're angry? Han Xuanai giggled, as if she didn't take the large fellow before her seriously. Roar! Instantly, the 3-eyed flame tiger was completely enraged, and it roared explosively before charging directly towards her. Right at this instant, Duan Ling Tian felt a scorching aura assault his face, and it caused him to be unable to refrain from having a grim expression. The other young geniuses, including Mo Xian, who had the strongest strength, went pale as well. It was at this instant that a gentle yet enormous strength carried Duan Ling Tian and the others to dodge to the side. It was precisely King Yong who's made a move. Duan Ling Tian felt as if he was traveling through space, and when he recovered his senses, he saw with a glance that Han Xuanai was facing the 3-eyed flame tiger by herself now. Xuanai. Duan Ling Tian's face went pale when faced with such a dangerous scene, and he couldn't help but exclaim. He entirely didn't have the time to think why King Yong would have moved everyone away, yet didn't move Han Xuanai. In the distance, Han Xuanai's expression remained unchanged when faced with the 3-eyed flame tiger that seemed to have transformed into a ball of flames that pounced towards her. At this moment, in the sky above the 3-eyed flame tiger that swiftly moved forward, 12 ancient horned dragon silhouettes swept out to reveal his cultivation. 9th level of the void prying stage. Not only that, along with the pulsating of the origin energy on the 3-eyed flame tiger's body, a fiery red energy that was almost material flawlessly combined with his origin energy, and it seemed like burning flames. Meanwhile, another 8 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky. 8th level fire concept. Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted. Besides being a 9th level void prying stage demon beast, this 3-eyed flame tiger had also comprehended 8th level fire concept. Roar! The 3-eyed flame tiger pounced towards Han Xuanai, and when its body that was like an enormous mountain was compared with Han Xuanai's body, they were simply like two opposites. When compared, the difference between Han Xuanai and the 3-eyed flame tiger was like the difference between an ant and human. King Yong wouldn't have intentionally not saved her, right? At this moment, similar thoughts had emerged in the hearts of all the young geniuses, including Duan Ling Tian. King Yong's actions earlier of only saving them, yet not saving the young girl, was something that they were unable to wrap their heads around, whereas the following scene caused Duan Ling Tian to be completely stunned. Now, it wasn't only Duan Ling Tian, Everyone else besides King Yong had their eyes wide open with dumbstruck expressions. Heavens! What have I seen? Han Xuan Nai in the distance raised her hand unhurriedly when facing the three-eyed flame tiger that carried along the strength of 20 ancient horned dragons. Subsequently, every present clearly saw Han Xuan Nai lightly leap up. Then her white wrist that was like white jade slowly stretched out from beneath her sleeve, and it moved to intercept the three-eyed flame tiger that approached menacingly. Roar! The three-eyed flame tiger let out a loud roar, and then it opened up its blood mouth, intending to swallow Han Xuan Nai into its belly. Right at this moment, Han Xuan Nai made another move. Her graceful figure dangerously avoided the three-eyed flame tiger's bloody mouth. Subsequently, she arrived between the brows of the flame tiger. Whoosh! Her delicate hand formed a palm that pressed down towards the spot between the flame tiger's brows. Right at this moment, origin energy appeared in the center of Han Xuanai's palm before condensing into a revolving vortex that instantly caused gusts of strong winds to sweep out in all directions. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian and the others felt a wave of violent winds assault them, and it blew to the point that they were barely able to stand firmly on the spot in midair with origin energy protecting their bodies, whereas the clothes on their bodies fluttered in the wind to the point of emitting flapping sounds. What strong origin energy! Duan Ling Tian's pupils couldn't help but constrict, and he felt extremely shocked in his heart. Such strong origin energy was obviously already above the void initiation stage. Void interpretation stage? Duan Ling Tian's heart jerked, and at the same time, he couldn't help but raise his head while intending to clearly see the total amount of ancient horned dragon silhouettes that had condensed into form above Han Xuanai. But unfortunately, in the next moment, waves of coldness emerged from the violent winds, and it caused him to be unable to help but close his eyes. When Duan Ling Tian squinted his eyes and looked over with difficulty, he instead saw that this coldness had come from the origin energy vortex that spun rapidly on Han Xuanai's hand. Presently, strands of extremely terrifying icy cold aura were stretching out from those origin energy vortexes, and the air around Han Xuanai had already been frozen to the point it almost stopped moving. Big guy, I know you three-eyed flame tigers hate water and ice the most. I'll let you try the feeling of being frozen into a popsicle. Suddenly, Han Xuanai spoke out, and her voice that was moving like the sound of an aureole instead caused others to feel a slight chill run down their spines at this moment. Frozen into a popsicle? Right when Duan Ling Tian's heart jerked, Han Xuanai's palm descended down to slap onto the spot between the three-eyed flame tiger's brows. Instantly, a terrifying gale swept out, and within it was an aura that was icy cold to the extreme mixed within it, whereas the clouds and mist in the horizon had completely stopped moving at this moment. They were completely frozen by the icy cold aura. Duan Ling Tian and the others were utterly unable to clearly see how many ancient horned dragon silhouettes had appeared atop Han Xuanai. When these clouds and mist once again started moving, the figures of Han Xuanai and the three-eyed flame tiger once again appeared before the eyes of everyone present. But the scene before them caused everyone, including King Yong, to be dumbstruck. It really became a popsicle, Duan Ling Tian muttered as he looked ahead. Within Duan Ling Tian's field of vision, the faraway three-eyed flame tiger had completely stopped on the spot. Presently, there was a layer of thick icy that froze the three-eyed flame tiger within it, causing it to become a unique icy sculpture, whereas within the ice sculpture, the origin energy on the three-eyed flame tiger's body could vaguely be seen to be gradually dispersing. As for the 8-level fire concept in the three-eyed flame tiger's origin energy, it had been blasted to the point nothing remained since long ago. Now, the three-eyed flame tiger had completely stiffened in midair, and its body started to descend slowly. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a swift figure instantly arrived below the three-eyed flame tiger and help it up to prevent the three-eyed flame tiger from falling down. Otherwise, with the current height the three-eyed flame tiger was at, then once it fell down, it would surely transform into countless pieces along with the ice that froze it. The one that saved the three-eyed flame tiger was naturally King Yong. Presently, King Yong was looking at the yellow-clothed young girl in the distance with a bitter smile on his face. The young girl that looked harmless instead seemed no different to a devil in King Yong's eyes. Shwe, young Miss Xuanai, this three-eyed flame tiger didn't mean to oppose you. I hope that you can show mercy. King Yong's tone contained slightly helplessness mixed within. Humph. Han Xuanai raised her head and glanced indifferently at the three-eyed flame tiger that was frozen, and then she said indifferently, "Who asked him to want to eat me? Uncle Red Mole. If you want to save him, feel free to save him from the ice. I won't stop you." As she finished speaking, a wisp of a sly smile appeared in Han Xuanai's eyes. It was as if there was some sort of trickery to it. King Yong's expression sank, and he sighed. "Young Miss Xuanai, please don't joke. You froze it with your origin energy combined with ice concept, and it has already caused him to fuse into one with the ice. If I were to forcefully do something to the ice, then he would die along with it." Han Xuanai's beautiful face froze, and she spoke with slight surprise. "Uncle Red Mole, I never expected that you know this as well. Uncle Red Mole, where did you find out about this? According to my knowledge, ice concept isn't common." When he saw Han Xuanai intentionally changing the topic, King Yong was completely helpless, and he glanced over to the distant violet-clothed young man with a gaze that sought for help and said via voice transmission, "Duan Ling Tian, please ask this young Miss Xuanai to spare this three-eyed flame tiger. This three-eyed flame tiger is our Darkstone Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family's empire-guarding demon beast, and it had extraordinary meaning to our Darkstone Empire. Young Miss Xuanai's ice concept is truly too strong. With the three-eyed flame tiger's strength, it would be at most half an hour before it would be dead for sure." As he finished speaking, King Yong's voice was slightly trembling. "Ice concept." Duan Ling Tian gasped. He never imagined that Xuanai had actually comprehended such a terrifying concept. Ice concept could be said to be the upgraded version of water concept, and it stood above the numerous concepts of nature. Since ancient times, there was a saying that had been passed down. Ice is made of water, yet it's colder than water. This was the same principle behind a pupil outdoing the master. "Xuanai." Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai. "Big brother Ling Tian, don't worry." Before Duan Ling Tian could finish speaking, Han Xuanai interrupted Duan Ling Tian's words as she'd obviously guessed what Duan Ling Tian wanted to say. The slyness in the depths of her beautiful eyes grew even denser. "I won't kill this big guy. Wasn't he unconvinced earlier? Then I'll freeze him for 15 minutes and allow him to sober up properly. Let's see if he dares be unconvinced again." Her tone contained slight childishness. 15 minutes? Duan Ling Tian's face froze when he heard this, and then he glanced at the three-eyed flame tiger that had been frozen into a popsicle with pity. This big fellow just had to go offend this little devil. He was simple looking to suffer. But Duan Ling Tian's heart was still filled with shock. Never had he imagined that Xuanai's strength was actually so terrifying. Earlier, because the clouds and mist in the horizon had been frozen by Xuanai's ice concept, so Duan Ling Tian and the others weren't able to see how many ancient horned dragon silhouettes had been condensed into form by the energy of heaven and earth. But even then, Duan Ling Tian was still able to confirm that Xuanai's strength was surely at the void interpretation stage or above. Moreover, she wasn't an ordinary void interpretation stage martial artist. This was something that could be discerned from the attitude King Yong assumed when facing Xuanai. At the beginning, he perceived that King Yong was extremely afraid of Xuanai. At that time, he thought that Xuanai had spoke of her background, and that's what caused King Yong to be like that. Now it would seem that the facts weren't like that. Perhaps when Xuanai stretched out her hand to pay King Yong's shoulder before the Darkstone Empire's imperial family's treasure vault earlier, she's revealed her terrifying strength to King Yong. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart as he guessed. Xuanai wouldn't really be an extremely old figure, right? Duan Ling Tian glanced at Han Xuanai, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Of course, Duan Ling Tian only thought about it, yet didn't speak of it. He didn't want to be frozen into a popsicle like the three-eyed flame tiger. Moreover, it was only Duan Ling Tian's irresponsible wild guess. If Xuanai really was a figure like the Maiden of Heavenly Mountain, then how could she possibly be willing to address a little kid like him as big brother? All of his thoughts couldn't hold its ground before the facts. Perhaps it was because of certain reasons that Xuanai's appearance didn't change in the slightest during these past few years. Duan Ling Tian guessed in his heart. But such a large popsicle is really rarely seen in the entire world. When he returned to his senses, Duan Ling Tian sighed with emotion as he looked at the three-eyed flame tiger that was frozen into a popsicle. 15 minutes? King Yong had a bitter smile on his face as he looked at the three-eyed flame tiger above him. Meanwhile, including the two old men behind King Yong, everyone looked at Han Xuanai now with a gaze that was filled with terror and astonishment. Never had they imagined that this harmless young girl that looked to be around 15 or 16 actually possessed such a terrifying cultivation. Moreover, she was a little devil that they couldn't afford to offend. This fellow Duan Ling Tian actually knows such a terrifying figure. Su Li glanced at Duan Ling Tian as he shook his head, and he was rather shocked. He originally thought that him being able to encounter his master was already a great fortunate encounter that others could only envy. But Duan Ling Tian's fortune was even more exaggerated. He'd become acquainted with a 15 or 16-year-old young girl that was in existence at the void interpretation stage or above. In terms of fortuitous encounter, Duan Ling Tian's had surpassed him. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons stuck out their heads from beneath Duan Ling Tian's sleeve, and their eyes revolved ceaselessly as they flicked their tongues. It was more like they were cheering for the young girl. The time of 15 minutes passed by in the blink of an eye for Duan Ling Tian and the others. But to the three-eyed flame tiger, it was undoubtedly extremely great torture. Although the three-eyed flame tiger was frozen to the point it was unable to move, Duan Ling Tian and the others were still able to see the flickering strands of terror in its eyes that had sprung wide open. Young Miss Xuanai, 15 minutes have passed. After 15 minutes, King Yong, who was still holding up the three-eyed flame tiger, looked at Han Xuanai, and his face carried a bitter smile of helplessness since the beginning. He was sure that the three-eyed flame tiger had never suffered such a punishment in its entire lifetime. But he was also sure that even if the three-eyed flame tiger suffered this punishment, it wouldn't dare be the slightest bit displeased towards the young girl. This young girl was utterly not in existence that the three-eyed flame tiger could go against. Big guy, remember well? When this young miss speaks in the future, you can only nod in agreement. If you dare question me again, then watch out that this young miss will freeze you into a popsicle again. Han Xuanai glared at the three-eyed flame tiger that was frozen within ice, and then he didn't seem to make any movements. Snap! She just snapped her finger, and right at this moment, the ice that confined the three-eyed flame tiger within it had instantly shattered into pieces before transforming into mist that covered the sky and completely vanished from the world. Awu! After the three-eyed flame tiger was freed, its body that was like an enormous mountain slightly trembled. Its enormous eyes that looked at Han Xuanai lightly flashed before revealing terror that came from the heart. Now, before Han Xuanai, the three-eyed flame tiger was obedient like a little cat. Duan Ling Tian and the others all sighed with emotion when they saw this scene. In this world where the strong are respected, the strong were enough to rule over everything. At the beginning, this three-eyed flame tiger became enraged from Han Xuanai's words, and it aggressively wanted to swallow up Han Xuanai to prove its dignity. Yet in the end, it was instead tortured by Han Xuanai. Now, the three-eyed flame tiger was tortured to the point it was convinced of Han Xuanai's superiority, causing it to not dare be displeased in the slightest towards Han Xuanai, and all it had was extreme terror that came from the bottom of its heart. Everyone ascend the back of the three-eyed flame tiger will be leaving to the Dark Han dynasty right away. Meanwhile, King Yong's voice entered into the ears of everyone. So King Yong brought us here because he wanted the three-eyed flame tiger to carry us to the Dark Han dynasty. The three-eyed flame tiger was originally only called over by King Yong to help carry us over. But unexpectedly, it actually encountered this little devil. It can be said that it's truly unfortunate. Yes, anyone that offends this little devil will be struck with misfortune. I really envy Duan Ling Tian for being able to form a relationship with this little devil. Many young geniuses discussed animatedly. Meanwhile, everyone stood on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger successively. The three-eyed flame tiger's body was enormous like a mountain, and its back was extremely spacious as well and was sufficient to accommodate many people. This three-eyed flame tiger's back, in terms of area, It's even able to compare with a football field of my previous life. Duan Ling Tian looked around, and as he gazed at the flat back of the three-eyed flame tiger, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. Big brother Ling Tian. Han Xuanai followed by Duan Ling Tian sighed like a shadow, and she teased the two little pythons that stuck their heads out from beneath Duan Ling Tian's sleeve as she greeted Duan Ling Tian. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai with an extremely complicated gaze. He's already felt Han Xuanai wasn't simple all those years ago, but he never imagined that she would actually possess such a terrifying strength. If Xuanai is really only a little over 20, yet possesses this cultivation of hers, then her background. It was slightly difficult for Duan Ling Tian to imagine. Xuanai. Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai, was asked slightly uncertainty via voice transmission. You? How old are you? Han Xuanai's lively eyes spun when she heard Duan Ling Tian, and then she replied via voice transmission. 21. 21? Duan Ling Tian was dumbstruck. Duan Ling Tian recovered from his shock after a short while, and then he couldn't refrain from asking, "Then why is your appearance always like this? All those years ago when I met you for the first time, you have the same appearance as you have now. Your appearance has never changed this whole time." Han Xuanai lowered her little head when she heard this, and she said with slight helplessness, "Big brother Ling Tian, actually, I don't want to be like this as well. But the cultivation method I cultivate is like this, and I'm helpless. Only when my cultivation arrives at a certain level would I be able to break through the shackles of having a young appearance, and I'll be able to grow like an ordinary person." Cultivation method? Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding. If all of this was because of the effect of her cultivation method, then it could be understood. Of course, if it was someone else, they would perhaps feel that it was unbelievable. A mere cultivation method was able to allow a person to maintain a young appearance for many years? Only Duan Ling Tian knew that the ability of some cultivation methods exceeded the imaginations of ordinary people. There was no need to go so far, just the Rebirth Martial Emperor was enough. The Rebirth Martial Emperor cultivated the three lives rebirth technique all those years ago, and he was able to use the same soul, but different body to experience 3 lifetimes. In the eyes of an ordinary person, this was an inconceivable and unbelievable thing. But it did indeed exist. If it wasn't for an unexpected event, the Rebirth Martial Emperor's 3rd lifetime would have probably started already. In that way, the current Duan Ling Tian wouldn't exist. So that's how it is. Duan Ling Tian heaved a sigh of relief as he finally confirmed that Han Xuanai wasn't an old granny. "Xuanai, can you tell me of your origins?" Duan Ling Tian asked curiously. It was as if there were thousands of ants crawling in his heart, and they had become restless because of his curiosity that was aroused from Han Xuanai's origins. Big brother Ling Tian, you'll naturally know in the future. Even if I tell you now, you might not know of it. Han Xuanai's reply was ambiguous. I might not know of it even if she told me. Duan Ling Tian neither agreed nor disagreed when he heard Han Xuanai's reply. After all, he wasn't the frog at the bottom of the well like Han Xuanai thought he was. Perhaps in the eyes of Han Xuanai, he was only a bumpkin that had never left the Darkhan dynasty, a rash fellow that had never been to the foreign lands. However, in reality, he instead possessed the memories of an extremely formidable martial emperor that had experienced 2 lifetimes. This little girl Xuanai is still acting mysterious with me. Perhaps her background is related to the Rebirth Martial Emperor. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. According to the memories of the 2 lifetimes Rebirth Martial Emperor had experienced, he'd had a great deal of interaction with the top few great powers in Cloud Continent during his peak period. As far as Duan Ling Tian was concerned, it was extremely likely that Han Xuanai was from one of those powers. Coincidentally, one of those few powers was led by a person surnamed Han. The ancient Han clan. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, that Han clan was one of the most ancient clans in Cloud Continent, and it had experienced countless amounts of years without perishing. In Cloud Continent, there were only 2 clans that could be traces back to the ancient times, and the Han clan was one of them. When he thought up to here, Duan Ling Tian understood in his heart and didn't delve deeper into it with Han Xuanai. It was just like Han Xuanai had said, If he was able to become a martial monarch or even a martial emperor in the future, he would surely interact with the top powers of Cloud Continent. At that time, he would be easily able to inquire if Han Shui Nai was someone from the ancient Han clan. Let's go. Suddenly, King Yong's stern shout sounded out by Duan Ling Tian's ears. King Yong asked the three-eyed flame tiger beneath them to leave. Yet the three-eyed flame tiger didn't make a single movement, and it stood on the spot while remaining unmoving. It was as if it had become stiff on the spot. This caused the group of young geniuses to be slightly speechless. Could it be that this three-eyed flame tiger still thinks it's been frozen and unable to move? Xuanai. When he saw King Yong's expression becoming more and more unsightly, Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai. Han Xuanai nodded with understanding. Then she lightly raised her leg to step on the three-eyed flame tiger beneath her, and then shouted in a delicate voice, "Big guy, move quickly. Otherwise, I'll freeze you into a pop." She hadn't finished saying cycle when the three-eyed flame tiger seemed as if it was given stimulants, and its body flashed out to head directly towards the Dark Han dynasty. That caused the people present to be unable to help from sighing. Especially King Yong. A strand of bright light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, King Yong was even planning in his heart if he should properly teach the three-eyed flame tiger a lesson and make it be afraid of him like it was afraid of Han Xuanai. In this way, he wouldn't have to worry about the three-eyed flame tiger not listening to him. It could be imagined that if the three-eyed flame tiger were to know of King Yong's current thoughts, it would probably be terrified to the point it cried and fainted. "Xuanai, you accompany Little Black and Little White. I want to cultivate for some time." After Duan Ling Tian passed the two little pythons to Han Xuanai, he sat down cross-legged on the spot and silently started cultivating. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, lightning WIRM form. At the same time that he cultivated, Duan Ling Tian didn't forget to arouse the medicinal strength of the void fuse fruit that had accumulated in his body to combine with the medicinal strength of the void strengthening pill and urge the speed of his cultivation to increase. Needless to say, the void fuse fruit's medicinal strength was extremely shocking. 7 days later, Duan Ling Tian successfully charged through the bottleneck and stepped into the 8th level of the void prying stage. Half a month later, he successfully stepped into the 9th level of the void prying stage. Meanwhile, not much of the medicinal strength of the void fuse fruit remained. 9th level of the void prying stage. In a short half a month of time, his cultivation had undergone such a great transformation, and it caused Duan Ling Tian to be exceedingly pleased. After Duan Ling Tian awoke, he temporarily didn't continue cultivating, and he instead sized up the surroundings. Only now did he notice that practically all the others had sat cross-legged on the spacious back of the three-eyed flame tiger and were cultivating, and even King Yong and the 2 old men by King Yong's side were no exception. Only Han Xuanai was bouncing about chasing the 2 little pythons, and similar to her current appearance, she wasn't like a 21-year-old in the slightest. Now, I've already broken through to the 9th level of the void prying stage, and I'm only a step away from the void initiation stage. I ought to contact the owners of the other 8 jade sword. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian had withdrew a glittering and translucent jade sword. This jade sword was exactly the key left behind by the young sect leader of the Boundless sect that day that opened the Sword Monarch's treasure. Just by hearing its name, the Sword Monarch's treasure, one would be able to know that it was a treasure left behind by a formidable martial monarch. Moreover, this was a sword-cultivating martial monarch. Without any hesitation, the origin energy on Duan Ling Tian's hand pulsated like 3 years ago, and he activated the voice transmission inscription in the jade sword. Right at this moment, Duan Ling Tian heard an aged voice. "After 3 years, you finally appeared once again. I heard that fellow from the Darkstone Empire mention you 3 years ago. You are another owner of a jade sword?" Duan Ling Tian asked. "Yes." The aged voice passed through the void transmission inscription to enter into Duan Ling Tian's ears, and it was exceedingly clear. "Where are you from?" Duan Ling Tian asked curiously. "I'm from Phoenix Cry Empire." The aged voice answered indifferently. "Phoenix Cry Empire?" Duan Ling Tian was stunned. It isn't surprising that you haven't heard it before. The Phoenix Cry Empire is extremely far from Darkstone Empire, and it doesn't belong to the Dark Han dynasty. The aged voice continued. I heard from that fellow the last time that you wanted to wait for your strength to be sufficient before opening the Sword Monarch's treasure with all of us. You've taken the initiative to contact us this time. Are you already prepared? The aged voice became slightly excited as it finished speaking. Just think about it. The key to open the Sword Monarch's treasure had been accumulating dust in his possession for many years, and not that it could be of use to open a great fortune. It was undoubtedly a thing that caused one to be excited. Not to mention the various dynasties, including the Dark Han dynasty. Even if it was in the entire foreign lands, the Sword Monarch's treasure was something that would cause the eyes of countless martial artists to go red with greed. Of course, if one doesn't possess a jade sword, that one would probably never be able to locate the Sword Monarch's treasure. Moreover, even if one possessed a jade sword, if all 9 weren't gathered together, it would similarly be of no use. Only after the 9 jade swords were gathered would one be able to head towards the Sword Monarch's treasure under the guidance of the jade sword and open the Sword Monarch's treasure. Yes, Duan Ling Tian replied. Very good. The owner of the aged voice spoke excitedly. How about this? You and I will arrange a time and location. I'll be in charge to contact the other 7 people. At that time, we'll all gather at the agreed-upon location. How about it? All right. Duan Ling Tian readily agreed. When and where do you think would be more suitable to gather? The owner of the aged voice said. I roughly know their locations. How about this? 3 months from now, we'll gather at Pheasant Ridge, which is north of the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire. How about it? Eastern Mulberry Empire? All right. Duan Ling Tian agreed. It's a deal. We'll not leave before seeing each other 3 months from now. Duan Ling Tian had heard of the Eastern Mulberry Empire. It was an empire that neighbored the Darkstone Empire, and it was on the eastern side of Darkstone Empire. After one passed the eastern border of Darkstone Empire, one would be in the Eastern Mulberry Empire. We'll not leave before seeing each other. The aged voice spoke out as well. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian withdrew the origin energy that had fused into the voice transmission inscription, and he severed the connection with the other person. With a command in his heart, he was just about to put away the jade sword in his hand. Unexpectedly, whoosh, a swift and strong wind assaulted him, and in the next moment, the jade sword in Duan Ling Tian's hand was seized away. Duan Ling Tian's face went grim, but when he saw clearly that the person who seized his jade sword was Han Xuanai, he heaved a sigh of relief. Han Xuanai blinked her cheeky eyes as she looked at the jade sword in her hand before looking at Duan Ling Tian, and then speaking with deep meaning. Big brother Ling Tian, this jade sword of yours seems to be extraordinary. There's nothing extraordinary about it. It's just a little toy. Duan Ling Tian shook his head lightly and smiled before stretching out his hand, intending to take back the jade sword from Han Xuanai. Unexpectedly, Han Xuanai had dodged, causing Duan Ling Tian to grab at the air. Big brother Ling Tian, you're lying? Would a little toy have an inscription on it? Moreover, it's a voice transmission inscription. When she spoke up to hear, Han Xuanai looked at Duan Ling Tian with a gaze that was filled with cunning. Xuanai? You're able to discern that there's a voice transmission inscription on it. Duan Ling Tian was stunned, as it was slightly unexpected to him. For a time, Han Xuanai had become even more mysterious in his eyes. I've seen this type of inscription before. Han Xuanai smiled. Duan Ling Tian came to an understanding. If Han Xuanai really was a member of the ancient Han clan, then it wasn't strange that she recognized the voice transmission inscription on the jade sword. The Han clan didn't lack inscription masters, nor did it lack voice transmission inscriptions. Han Xuanai's pair of cheeky eyes ceaselessly spun about. Then she looked at Duan Ling Tian with a spurious smile that showed she wouldn't return this jade sword to Duan Ling Tian until he told her about it. Xuanai. Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly, and then he sent a voice transmission to tell the entire origins of the jade sword to Han Xuanai. Sword Monarch's treasure? After Han Xuanai found out about the origins of the jade sword, her cheeky eyes flickered with a bright light, and she was obviously interested in this Sword Monarch's treasure. Big brother Ling Tian, you're too bad. You wouldn't have been intending to leave me, little black, and little white while you go alone to such a fun place, right? After she returned the jade sword to Duan Ling Tian, Han Xuanai spoke, with slight displeasure. Fun place? The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth twitched, and then he laughed embarrassedly, yet didn't admit to it. Even though he did indeed have thoughts like this. Big brother Ling Tian, I'm going with you. Han Xuanai's tone was resolute and decisive, and there was no room for discussion. If you want to come, then come. Duan Ling Tian didn't refuse. As far as he was concerned, Han Xuanai was in existence at the void interpretation stage or above, and even in the entire Dark Han dynasty, she was an expert at the top. If she was present, then perhaps his trip to the Sword Monarch's treasure would be much more relaxed. Needless to say, as a 9th-level void initiation stage demon beast, the three-eyed flame tiger's speed was extremely swift. It only spent a month to cross over from the Darkstone Empire's imperial city to the capital of Dark Han dynasty and arrive in the sky above their destination. The three-eyed flame tiger stood in mid-air without moving an inch, and it seemed like an enormous mountain floating high above in the sky. On this enormous mountain, a group of people had stood in a row as they looked down at the vast ground beneath them. This is the Dark Han dynasty's capital? A young genius couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. Presently, a city that occupied an area so vast it was a few times the total area of the Darkstone Empire's imperial city had appeared before the eyes of Duan Ling Tian's group. As expected of the Dark Han dynasty's capital, it's absolutely the largest city I've seen in my entire lifetime. Zhong Nan sighed with emotion. Yeah, before the capital of the Dark Han dynasty, I feel myself to be like a frog inside a well. Gao Yuhai lightly fanned the fan in his hand, and he had a complicated gaze. All of you will only know what being a frog inside a well really means once all of you meet the young geniuses of the Dark Han dynasty. King Yong spoke indifferently. According to my knowledge, there are many who possess strength that are on par with Mo Xian in the Dark Han dynasty. Although it's said that all of you have come here to compete for the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, I'm only confident towards Mo Xian. Of course, it isn't that I'm looking down on your natural talents. Amongst all of you, Duan Ling Tian and Su Li are both on par with Mo Xian in terms of natural talent. But unfortunately, they're too young. If they were given another few years of time, then it wasn't impossible for them to catch up to Mo Xian. When he spoke up to here, King Yong looked at Duan Ling Tian and Su Li, and he seemed more like he was consoling them. For a time, the gazes of most of the people present couldn't help but descend onto Duan Ling Tian and Su Li. King Yong's words were to the point, and most of them agreed to it. Of course, there were also people that didn't, and that was Long Yun. At this moment, Long Yun had an unconvinced expression, and it was as if he was not convinced because King Yong didn't mention him. Duan Ling Tian and Su Li couldn't help but look at each other when they heard King Yong. Duan Ling Tian, looks like King Yong doesn't look favorably upon us, said Su Li to Duan Ling Tian via voice transmission. Then we'll let our actions prove that his eyes are mistaken. Duan Ling Tian shrugged and replied with an indifferent expression. I have the exact same intention. Su Li's face was filled with confidence. Let's go over there. In next to no time, King Yong spoke, and he urged the three-eyed flame tiger to head towards the continuous mountain range west of the capital. The end of the continuous mountain range couldn't be seen. After King Yong found a gorge as the place for the three-eyed flame tiger to rest, he instructed, from today onwards, you will stay here. Once the dynasty martial competition ends, I'll bring along the people who have been eliminated to come meet you before returning to the Darkstone Empire. Awu, the three-eyed flame tiger's body that was enormous like a mountain lay within the gorge as it nodded to King Yong. At the same time, it didn't forget to glance at the yellow-clothed young girl that stood nearby, and terror that came from the soul was contained deep within his eyes. Let's go. After he made arrangements for the three-eyed flame tiger, King Yong and the two old men behind him brought Duan Ling Tian and the others along to head directly towards the capital of Dark Han Dynasty. The feeling when looking down at the capital of Dark Han Dynasty from the sky was completely different from the feeling when standing before the gate of the capital and looking up at it. How magnificent! Duan Ling Tian's heart shook as he looked at the city before him that was like an enormous beast. The entire city emitted an aura that was ancient and filled with experience, and it seemed to be narrating how long in history it had existed. How long the Dark Han dynasty has existed is something that is already impossible to find out. King Yong sighed. Before our Darkstone Empire and the other empires in the Dark Han dynasty had been born, the Dark Han dynasty had already existed. Such as the gold and silver we use normally are precisely from the Dark Han dynasty. No matter how the ruler of an empire, imperial kingdom, or kingdom changed, so long as the Dark Han dynasty still exists, then the gold and silver bills won't lose their worth. As he finished speaking, King Yong was filled with deep veneration. A dignified existence at the void interpretation stage couldn't refrain from arousing reverence from the heart when facing the history of the Dark Han dynasty. As the capital of the Dark Han dynasty, it was heavily guarded, and not everyone was able to casually enter the capital. At the gate to the capital was 2 rows of armored guards standing there, and they registered the people that entered and exited the capital. Not only was the gate to the Dark Han dynasty's capital heavily guarded, even the sky above the capital had numerous guards that formed neat groups and flashed past. These guards that were in the sky above the capital looked fiercely at the horizon in all directions, and so long as they saw something off, they would charge forward. Since these guards were able to fly in the air, they were undoubtedly existences at the void prying stage or above, and it caused Duan Ling Tian to be extremely shocked. This is the hidden resources and reserves of a dynasty. A group of guards that patrolled in the sky were all existences at the void prying stage or above. Duan Ling Tian sighed in his heart. At this moment, he couldn't help but recall his hometown, the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, there were only those few void prying stage martial artists, whereas in the Dark Han dynasty, it was all void prying stage martial artists that guarded the gate and patrolled the skies. It was completely like the difference between the sky and earth between the two of them. If the Dark Han dynasty is compared to the busiest large city in the earth of my previous life, then the Crimson Sky Kingdom is simple those remote villages that even a road couldn't be found in. This thought couldn't help but emerge in Duan Ling Tian's heart. Presently, it wasn't only Duan Ling Tian that was shocked by the guards in the sky. Even Mo Xian and the others couldn't help but have an expression of shock. So many void prying stage martial artists are actually only the patrolling guards of the Dark Han dynasty's capital? Zhong Nan's pupils constricted, and he was slightly astonished. No wonder they say that in the Dark Han dynasty, void initiation stage experts were numerous like stray dogs on the streets, and void prying stage experts walked all over the place. I thought earlier that this was people exaggerating, yet now it would seem that these words were truly too appropriate. Gao Yuhai put away the fan in his hand as he sighed with emotion. Only Han Xuanai, King Yong, Su Li, and Long Yun were the people present that were still able to maintain their composure. Duan Ling Tian clearly noticed the composed expressions of the 4 of them. He wasn't surprised by Han Xuanai's composure, as she was from the foreign lands, after all. He was similarly not surprised by King Yong, as the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire had surely come to the Dark Han dynasty on many occasions. Su Li and Long Yun had caused him to feel surprised. Su Li, could it be that you've come here before? Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but asked Su Li via voice transmission. Yes, Su Li replied. I came here with Master once. According to my knowledge, Long Yun ought to have come here with my martial uncle Saber. Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding, and he felt that their composure was understandable. King Yong. Meanwhile, Zhongnan looked at King Yong, and he asked curiously, up until now, I haven't seen a single person enter the Dark Han dynasty's capital from the sky. Could it be that the capital doesn't allow people to enter and leave from the sky? Kind of. King Yong nodded. Kind of. King Yong's words caused everyone, including Duan Ling Tian, to feel deeply bewildered. King Yong continued. The sky above the Dark Han dynasty doesn't allow anyone aside from the members of the imperial family to enter and leave through it. Duan Ling Tian and the others came to a sudden understanding. As the power that ruled the Dark Han dynasty, the imperial family undoubtedly implemented hegemony. Of course, Duan Ling Tian was sure that if it was an expert that possessed the strength to look down upon the Dark Han dynasty's imperial family, then the expert was similarly able to casually fly in and out through the capital's sky. When faced with an expert like that, the Dark Han dynasty's imperial family would probably not dare say a word. This world where the strong were respected was like this. Let's go. Under King Yong's lead, Duan Ling Tian's group headed towards the gate of the capital. Duan Ling Tian's ground carried out their registration under the lead of King Yong. Darkstone Empire's King Yong. The guard that was in charge of registering Duan Ling Tian's group glanced at King Yong with slight surprise, and after he registered them, he passed 14 command tokens to King Yong. Every one of them had one of these tokens, and it was used to enter and leave the capital. After they registered themselves, in the next 3 years, they would only have to produce this command token to enter and leave the capital, and there was no need to continue registering themselves. Under King Yong's lead, Duan Ling Tian's group walked into the capital, and what entered their eyes was numerous complicated large streets that caused Duan Ling Tian and the others to be unable to help themselves from being dazed by it. As the capital of the Dark Han dynasty, it was bustling and prosperous. Every single large street had carriages that formed dragons that flowed endlessly. Big Brother Ling Tian, when are we leaving? There's another 2.5 months of time before the arranged date between you and the other possessors of the Jade Swords. Han Xuanai's voice transmission entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears in a timely manner. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This young girl Xuanai's interest to the Sword Monarch's treasure seemed to be even greater than him. Of course, he was able to perceive that Xuanai entirely wanted to go join in the fun as she felt it was fun. We'll leave after we've settled down. It's all right like this, right? Duan Ling Tian replied with slight helplessness. Han Xuanai's cheeky eyes flashed when she heard this, and she nodded in satisfaction. Let's first go have a meal, and then we'll stay in an estate that was purchased by our Darkstone Empire's imperial family, King Yong said to all of them. All of them had no objections. Duan Ling Tian and the others weren't surprised that the Darkstone Empire possessed an estate in the capital. Under the lead of King Yong, they casually found a restaurant and had a meal. After that, Duan Ling Tian's group followed behind King Yong to arrive at the estate. The estate was extremely large, and it was divided into the front courtyard and rear courtyard. There are 108 independent small courtyards at the rear courtyard. During this period of time, all of you can stay in the east courtyard of the rear courtyard. There are 20 independent little courtyards in the east courtyard. King Yong brought Duan Ling Tian and the others to the rear courtyard before instructing, and then he brought the 2 old men behind him and left. Duan Ling Tian and the others started to distribute the small courtyards in the east courtyard. But no one entered any of the small courtyards first. Besides Duan Ling Tian, the others had slight fear in their eyes as they looked at the yellow-clothed young girl that followed by Duan Ling Tian's side. When he saw this scene, how could Duan Ling Tian not know what the others were thinking? And he looked at Han Xuanai and said, Xuanai, you choose first. Big Brother Ling Tian, I'll stay at a courtyard beside yours. Those 2 courtyards look good and are close together. How about we stay there? Han Xuanai's gaze descended onto the 2 small courtyards in the distance that were connected together. These 2 small courtyards were situated at a corner of the east courtyard, and both sides of them were planted fully with plants and flowers, causing them to seem extremely peaceful and quiet. I don't mind. Duan Ling Tian shrugged. As far as he was concerned, even if they chose these small courtyards, he would probably be unable to stay for a few days. He was soon to leave with Han Xuanai to head towards the Pheasant Ridge of Eastern Mulberry Empire to gather with the other possessors of the Jade Swords. At that time, they would enter the Sword Monarch's treasure. When they came out, quite a long time would have surely passed. I only hope that I can rush back before the Dynasty Martial competition begins. Actually, Duan Ling Tian didn't have the slightest confidence towards if he was able to return before the Dynasty Martial competition started. After all, everything within the Sword Monarch's treasure was something unknown to him. Of course, he could choose to not go to the Sword Monarch's treasure at this time. But in this way, he wouldn't have any confidence in being able to become eminent in the Dynasty Martial competition and the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Just like King Yong had said earlier, there were many young geniuses in the Dark Han dynasty that possessed a strength that was not inferior to Mo Xian. If he didn't have any special fortuitous encounter before the martial competition, then he wouldn't have any confidence to become eminent, and seized the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Even though his natural talent had attained the limit from consuming the 10,000-year stalactite milk, his age was far inferior from those young geniuses that were almost 40 years of age. He'd taken a great loss in age, and he could only make up with fortuitous encounters. To him, no matter if it was the Sword Monarch's treasure or the Rebirth pill, they could be considered to be fortuitous encounters. Presently, he was creating fortuitous encounters for himself. He had no knowledge of what could be obtained in the Sword Monarch's treasure, and he was only betting on his luck, whereas he was able to anticipate the benefit the Rebirth pill brought to him. But he hadn't found the last medicinal material, ageless root, yet. So Duan Ling Tian had placed his hopes on the Sword Monarch's treasure. I only hope that the Sword Monarch's treasure doesn't disappoint me, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Along with Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai entering their own small courtyards, Su Li and the others started choosing the small courtyard that belonged to themselves before moving into them. Normally, there would be people to send food over, so everyone practically stayed in the room in their small courtyard, silently cultivating and didn't leave. On the third day, Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai went to look for King Yong together, and Duan Ling Tian went straight to the point. King Yong, I intend to leave the capital for a period of time. You must rush back before the martial competition begins. When he saw Han Xuanai by Duan Ling Tian's side, King Yong didn't ask any further and directly agreed. All right, Duan Ling Tian replied before leaving the estate with Han Xuanai. Hiss hiss. Meanwhile, the two little pythons stuck their heads out from Duan Ling Tian's sleeve, and their eyes contained slight excitement mixed within. They knew the objective of Duan Ling Tian's trip this time, and they were similarly filled with interest towards the Sword Monarch's treasure. The two people and two pythons left the capital. Xuanai, shouldn't we find a demon beast to carry us? Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai and asked. Big brother Ling Tian, you're so stupid. We don't need to find another demon beast. Han Xuanai shook her head, and then she led the way towards the western mountain range. Duan Ling Tian seemed to have realized something, and his eyes revealed a trace of a strange sheen. I forget that three-eyed flame tiger might disregard me, but he would listen to every order of Xuanai's. In the gorge at the continuous mountain range, the three-eyed flame tiger lay there and was intending to take a nap. Flying all the way here had caused it to be exhausted since long ago. Especially when it thought of how it could stay away from that little devil, his mood was extremely good. Whoosh! Suddenly, a fierce beast entered the gorge by mistake. The three-eyed flame tiger roared with a low voice, and a terrifying suction force swept out before he swallowed that fierce beast into his stomach. After he burped, the three-eyed flame tiger closed its eyes in satisfaction. I can finally have a nice nap. Right at this moment, big guy, a voice that was moving like the voice of an oriole caused the body of the three-eyed flame tiger that was enormous like a mountain to tremble. For a time, the entire gorge started to shake along with the intense trembling of his body. The three-eyed flame tiger was unable to care about the gorge being shaken to the point it quaked. He raised his head to look up into the sky, and his pair of eyes that were like gongs sprung fully open into two circles as he looked at the yellow-colored figure that slowly descended. Why has this lady returned? My life is over. The three-eyed flame tiger shouted in his heart. Big guy, I never expected that you miss me so much. You're actually so excited from seeing me. The yellow-clothed young girl descended from the air to stand on the spacious back of the three-eyed flame tiger, and her cheeky eyes flashed with slyness as she lightly smiled. Instantly, the three-eyed flame tiger's body stiffened, and it didn't dare tremble in the slightest any longer. He didn't want to infuriate this lady. If this lady were to be unhappy and condensed ice with her ice concept to seal him up, then he would really not know what to do. From the beginning until the end, the three-eyed flame tiger never took a sense glance at Duan Ling Tian, who followed behind. This big fellow is completely afraid of Xuanai now. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Big brother Ling Tian, come over quickly. Han Xuanai stood on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger as she called out to Duan Ling Tian. Swish, swish. Duan Ling Tian was in midair when a black and a wild bolt of lightning flashed out from beneath his sleeve, and they descended onto the back of the three-eyed flame tiger first. It was precisely the two little pythons. What swift speed these two little fellows possess. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh when he saw the scene before him. In the past, the cultivation of the two little fellows had surpassed him. Now, many years had passed since then, and he'd obtained fortuitous encounters again and again, yet he was still unable to catch up to these two little fellows. I hope it can surpass these two little fellows in one go after I come out from the Sword Monarch's treasure vault this time. Duan Ling Tian silently thought in his heart. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian descended onto the back of the three-eyed flame tiger as well. Big guy, let's go. We're returning to the Darkstone Empire. Han Shui Nai raised her leg and lightly stomped, shocking the three-eyed flame tiger to the point it shuddered, and then the gorge shook once more. At the same time, it flew up into the air and entered high above in the clouds. Subsequently, it carried Duan Ling Tian and Han Shui Nai to head all the way to the Darkstone Empire. On the way, Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged and cultivated silently. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, lightning WIRM form. A month of time passed by extremely swiftly. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian had completely exhausted the medicinal strength of the void fuse fruit, and his cultivation approached the bottleneck at the end of the 9th level of the void prying stage, the final bottleneck of the void prying stage. So long as Duan Ling Tian comprehended a type of concept and broke through this bottleneck, then he'd be able to officially break through to the void initiation stage, and his cultivation would undergo a tremendous change. My cultivation will step into the final bottleneck of the void prying stage in at most 1 month of time. At that time, what I have to do is comprehend wind concept or lightning concept to step into the void initiation stage in one go. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed as he thought in his heart. Big brother Ling Tian, we've arrived at the Darkstone Empire. Meanwhile, Han Shuenai's voice that was like an oriole sounded out. Shuenai. Duan Ling Tian suddenly recalled something. Ask this big fellow to head towards the eastern part of Darkstone Empire. I want to go take back something. Big brother Ling Tian, what do you want to take? Shuenai asked curiously. I don't know yet. Duan Ling Tian shook his head. When she heard Duan Ling Tian's words, Han Shuenai was even more curious, and she instructed to the three-eyed flame tiger to head towards the east of Darkstone Empire. Big brother Ling Tian, where do you want to go? Han Shuenai couldn't help but ask. Flourishing Summer City. Duan Ling Tian spoke slowly. Flourishing Summer City was precisely the city in the Darkstone Empire that Duan Ling Tian had gone to before he headed to the Darkhan Dynasty for the first time during the period before the Young Genius competition began. He'd issued a reward assignment in the Flourishing Summer City's treasure gathering pavilion, rewarding a grade 4 spirit sword for the ageless root. At that time, after his reward failed to bear fruit in the Darkhan Dynasty's Milky Way City, he didn't rush to go take back the grade 4 spirit sword in Flourishing Summer City when he returned. He'd always been thinking that perhaps during this period of time, there would be someone who was able to locate the ageless root. I wonder if someone has located the ageless root now? If there isn't, then I'm afraid there's no hope in the Darkstone Empire. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Meanwhile, he hoped so much that when he arrived at the Flourishing Summer City's treasure gathering pavilion, what he took back wasn't a grade 4 spirit sword, but the ageless root. If he was able to obtain the ageless root, then not to mention a single grade 4 spirit sword, even if it was 10 grade 4 spirit swords, Duan Ling Tian would still pay without the slightest hesitation. The three-eyed flame tiger's speed was extremely swift, and they arrived nearby Flourishing Summer City before long. Big fellow, wait here for me and Shuenai. Duan Ling Tian looked at the three-eyed flame tiger and spoke. The three-eyed flame tiger raised its head proudly and utterly disregarded Duan Ling Tian. Big guy, do you want to become a popsicle again? Right at this moment, Shuenai's voice that was like the sound of a devil caused the three-eyed flame tiger's body to be unable to refrain from trembling, and its enormous head started swaying. Since you don't want to, then do whatever my big brother Ling Tian asks you to in the future. Did you hear me? Shuenai continued. Meanwhile, the three-eyed flame tiger could only grievously nod its enormous head, yet didn't dare be displeased in the slightest. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Then he brought along Han Xuanai and the two little pythons to fly down and enter flourishing Summer City before heading towards the treasure-gathering pavilion. Hey, what a beautiful little girl. Little girl, don't follow this pretty boy anymore in the future. Follow this lord instead. I guarantee you'll have a very good life. Suddenly, a frivolous voice sounded out. At the side of the roar, a bald man that was covered in alcohol flew out to pounce towards Han Xuanai, and his face was filled with a smile of lust. You're courting death. Duan Ling Tian's face sank, and he was about to make a move. Swish. Yet right at this moment, a piercing howl sounded out, and then saw a black bolt of lightning flash by. Subsequently, the bald man was still halfway over when his chest suddenly exploded open, and it ceaselessly sprayed dazzling and beautiful fresh blood. The bald man's pupils constricted, then his legs split open before directly falling onto the ground, and he was completely devoid of any signs of life. Dead. Swish. The black bolt of lightning appeared once again, and it descended onto Han Xuanai's shoulder this time to reveal its figure. It was precisely the little black python. Hiss hiss. The little black python complacently shook his head, and he flicked his tongue as he looked at Han Xuanai, as if he was seeking credit. Little Black is so good. Han Xuanai wasn't surprised in the slightest by the little black python swiftly killing the bald man, and her face was covered with tender affection as she lightly rubbed the little black python's small head. Meanwhile, the surrounding people looked with terrified expression at this pair of girl and snake, and all of them kept a good distance away, as they were deeply afraid of offending this pair of maleficent existences. Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at the bald man's corpse before raising his head and continuing forward. Although the flourishing Summer City was chaotic as always, because of the bald man's death, Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai had become existences that no one dared to offend easily. They moved smoothly all along a way to arrive at the treasure-gathering pavilion. After walking into the pavilion and ascending the second floor, Duan Ling Tian withdrew the jade ornament half before the same counter and passed it to the middle-aged man behind the counter. I offered a grade 4 spirit sword as a reward for the ageless root. Was it successful? The middle-aged man was the same person from that day. He returned to his senses when he heard Duan Ling Tian, and only now did he recognize Duan Ling Tian. Guest, the thing you're looking for hasn't been obtained yet. Will you continue keeping up the reward, or will you withdraw the reward item? I'll withdraw it, said Duan Ling Tian. He currently held no hope towards finding the ageless root in the Darkstone Empire. All right. The middle-aged man withdrew an exquisite long box from beneath the counter, and after he opened it, a spirit sword silently lay within. It was exactly the grade 4 spirit sword Duan Ling Tian placed here that day. The middle-aged man combined the half-jade ornament that Duan Ling Tian passed over with the other half within the box before nodding. It's correct. Guest, this is the item you place as a reward. As he spoke, the middle-aged man withdrew the spirit sword and passed it to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian received the spirit sword and directly put it away into his spatial ring. Guest, aren't you going to check it? The middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned when he saw Duan Ling Tian's movements that were so direct. Wasn't this young man afraid that spirit sword isn't the grade 4 spirit sword from before? After all, the outward appearance of a spirit sword was copied extremely easily. There's no need. Duan Ling Tian shook his head before turning around and leaving with Han Xuanai. What a joke. Not to mention his spiritual force was sufficient to directly detect the grade of the spirit sword. Even if he didn't use his spiritual force today, he'd already confirmed it at the instant his hand touched the spirit sword. The spirit sword from before was indeed the grade 4 spirit sword he'd casually refined that day. After he left the treasure-gathering pavilion, Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai had a meal together before leaving flourishing Summer City. They'd only just exited the city gate when Han Xuanai said to Duan Ling Tian via voice transmission, "Big brother Ling Tian, someone is following us." Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. He's noticed since long ago that since the moment they left the treasure-gathering pavilion, there was a person that was following him and Han Xuanai from the shadows. That person's cultivation was rather high, and it was in existence at the void initiation stage. Possessing treasures brings calamity. These words aren't wrong in the slightest. Duan Ling Tian sighed. Big brother Ling Tian. What you mean is that person has come for the grade 4 spirit sword you just took from the treasure-gathering pavilion? Han Xuanai asked. There's only this possibility. Duan Ling Tian nodded as his eyes flashed. Moreover, the person's identity ought to be not simple, and it's even to the extent that he's possibly the pavilion master of the treasure-gathering pavilion. An existence at the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. Within the entire flourishing Summer City, Duan Ling Tian could only connect this person together with the pavilion master of the treasure-gathering pavilion. As for other people, it would probably be impossible for them to have such a cultivation. Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai had only just exited the city gate for a short period of time. Whoosh! A piercingly cold howl of the wind swept over, and in the blink of an eye, it had appeared not far ahead from Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai. An aged figure appeared before the eyes of Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai. This was an old man with a strong body and a goatee, and his eyes flickered with a sheen of greed. Pavilion master of the treasure-gathering pavilion? Although Duan Ling Tian had already guessed it, he still wanted to confirm it by asking. You're really smart to actually be able to guess my identity. The old man with a goatee glanced deeply at Duan Ling Tian. But smart people normally don't live long. Is that so? Duan Ling Tian didn't get angry and instead started laughing when he heard the old man. When he saw the killing intent in the old man's eyes rising ceaselessly, Duan Ling Tian said, the treasure-gathering pavilion is an extremely reputable business in the area of the Darkhan dynasty at any rate, yet I never imagined that such scum like you would come from it. The reputation of the treasure-gathering pavilion will sooner or later be spoilt by scum like you. Huh? The old man suddenly laughed loudly, and he spoke with a savage expression. So long as I kill you, who will know that it was done by me? Who will know that your death was related to the treasure-gathering pavilion? Kid, if you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for not knowing the rule of not revealing your wealth. A grade 4 spirit weapon isn't something you're worthy of possessing. As he finished speaking, the old man had a lecturing tone. I'm not worth of possessing it. Then could it be that you are? Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at the old man, and then he said with a ridiculing smile, do you really think that everything at this moment is in your control? The old man's expression went slightly grim when he saw Duan Ling Tian being so composed, and he looked around in the surroundings. After he noticed there was no movement in the surroundings, the old man sneered. Kid, stop trying to deceive me. You, the little girl by your side, and those 2 snake-type demon beasts all have to die today. Obviously, the old man had been watching Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai all the way to the treasure-gathering pavilion, and he even knew of the existence of the 2 little pythons. That would depend on if you have the ability. Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at the old man, and then he looked at Han Xuanai who stood at the side. Xuanai, I'll leave this old fellow to you. Don't worry, big brother Ling Tian. Xuanai nodded, and then she looked at the old man as her voice that was moving like the voice of an oriole was filled with slight, icy coldness. I'm annoyed the most by old things like you that act indecently. Little girl, you're courting death. The old man burst into rage when he heard Han Xuanai, and the origin energy on his body roiled as he suddenly took a stride forward with intent to launch an attack. In the sky above him, the energy of heaven and earth started to roil before numerous ancient, horned dragon silhouettes started to condense into form. But unfortunately for him, in the next moment, all of this was destroyed and transformed into nothingness. Whoosh! Waves of piercingly cold winds blew past, and the old man maintained his action of taking a stride forward, yet his body was stiff on the spot. On the surroundings of his body was a layer of thick ice that enveloped him within and completely sealed him in ice. For a time, the old man had transformed into an ice sculpture. It could be vaguely seen that only terror remained now within the old man's eyes that flickered with bright lights. Terror that came from the heart and soul. This old fellow can be considered to be unfortunate for encountering Xuanai, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. But Duan Ling Tian's heart was still filled with shock. Earlier, his gaze had never left Han Xuanai as he wanted to discern Han Xuanai's exact cultivation. But unfortunately, he hadn't even had the time to clearly see how many ancient horned dragon silhouettes had appeared in the sky when they'd already transformed into nothingness, whereas the old man was already sealed in ice as well. Big brother Ling Tian, I'll go look for the big guy first. I'll leave him to you. Han Shui Nai gave Duan Ling Tian a brilliant smile before soaring up into the sky and vanishing high above in the sky. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and laughed helplessly. He was able to discern that Shui Nai couldn't be bothered to kill this old fellow. Being lazy to this extent can be considered to be a level already. Duan Ling Tian sighed in his heart. After he returned to his sense, Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended onto the ice sculpture before him, and he walked over step by step. Duan Ling Tian's gaze looked the eyes of the old man that had constricted slightly. At this moment, the old man's origin energy had been suppressed, and he was utterly unable to communicate with Duan Ling Tian via voice transmission. The only thing he could do was use a begging gaze to beg for mercy from Duan Ling Tian. I just wanted to tell you that smart people don't always have short lives. Duan Ling Tian arrived before the ice sculpture and gave the old man within the ice a brilliant and bright smile. Whoosh! In the next moment, Duan Ling Tian raised his hand and lightly struck it down towards the old man that was sealed in the ice. Slap! Duan Ling Tian's hand casually slapped down, and instantly, the ice sculpture shattered into pieces, whereas the old man within shattered with a bang along with the ice sculpture. Bang! The ice sculpture shattered into a pile of ice that fell beneath Duan Ling Tian's feet. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he saw the shattered ice that covered the ground, yet didn't taint the ground with the slightest trace of fresh blood. I heard of a saying a long time ago, killing is a form of art as well. Today, I can be considered to have experienced it. Duan Ling Tian found the old man's spatial ring from within the shattered ice. Fortunately, it isn't damaged. Duan Ling Tian placed the shattered ice that contained the spatial ring sealed within on his palm before his grade 4 pill fire lit ablaze. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian was dumbstruck, because he noticed that the shattered ice and even the spatial ring within it were melted by his pill fire. The spatial ring had obviously become a part of the shattered ice. Isn't Shui Nai's ice concept too overbearing? If I knew earlier, I'd have passed this piece of shattered ice to her and asked her to help withdraw the spatial ring within. Yet now the spatial ring has melted with the shattered ice. Duan Ling Tian felt a wave of aching in his heart. This spatial ring was the possession of the pavilion master of the flourishing Summer City's treasure-gathering pavilion, and there were surely many good things within it. But now, along with the spatial ring vanishing, the things within were all gone. As he sighed, Duan Ling Tian soared up into the sky and returned to the back of the three-eyed flame tiger. As he looked at the harmless little girl that sat at the side while teasing the two little pythons, a wave of coldness arose in his heart for no reason. Big fellow, head to the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire. Duan Ling Tian instructed the three-eyed flame tiger. This time, the three-eyed flame tiger didn't dare hesitate, and he nodded obediently before flying towards the east. As the empire-guarding demon beast of the Darkstone Empire, he naturally knew the location of the Eastern Mulberry Empire that was neighboring the Darkstone Empire. Duan Ling Tian, on the other hand, had instead sat down cross-legged, yet he didn't cultivate, but was instead searching through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor. Ice concept. Now, Duan Ling Tian was trying to understand the ice concept from the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor. Along with the passage of time, Duan Ling Tian obtained a certain level of understanding towards the ice concept. Besides the energy contained within it, the ice concept's exclusive property of freezing was extremely overbearing as well. For example, the method Han Shui Nai used her ice concept to freeze the three-eyed flame tiger and the old man from before into popsicles was precisely the exclusive property of freezing that the ice concept possessed. A martial artist that had comprehended ice concept only needed power the ice concept with origin energy to be able to freeze people and demon beasts. Of course, they were only able to freeze existences with cultivations lower than themselves. If it was an existence with a similar cultivation, or even an existence that possessed a higher cultivation, then even if they froze the existence, the existence would be able to easily struggle free, whereas once a person that had a lower cultivation was frozen, only an existence with a cultivation similar or higher than the possessor of the ice concept was able to unfreeze the person. If a person with lower cultivation than the possessor of the ice concept was to rashly make a move, it would only cause the death of the person or demon beast that was frozen. Looks like Xuanai's cultivation is even higher than King Yong. At that time, King Yong didn't dare rashly unfreeze the three-eyed flame tiger. After he found out about all this, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh, and he attained a deep understanding of the ice concept. The ice concept belonged to a variant form of a natural concept. Not only was it overbearing, it was also easily able to fight against a large number of enemies. Of course, it was only able to go against a large number of existences that possessed cultivations lower than the possessor of the ice concept. If it was an ordinary void interpretation stage martial artist, then when jointly sieged by hundreds and thousands of 9th-level void prying stage martial artists and demon beasts, then even if the martial artist doesn't die, he'd suffer extremely heavy injuries. Whereas if it was a void interpretation stage martial artist that had comprehended ice concept like Han Xuanai, the martial artist would be able to easily seal the hundreds and thousands of void initiation stage demon beasts and people in ice. Duan Ling Tian's gaze suddenly became dreamy as the scene of Han Xuanai going against over 1,000 9th-level void prying stage experts appeared in his mind. Her yellow clothes fluttered as a group of people that sieged her were transformed into ice sculptures with a raise of her hand. Amongst the ice sculptures that one couldn't see the end of, a yellow-clothed young girl stood there like a giant amongst dwarves. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, even he who'd experiences 2 lifetimes and seen countless experts had only met not more than 10 experts that had comprehended ice concept. Duan Ling Tian realized from this that martial artists that had comprehended ice concept were few and rare. After coming back to his senses, Duan Ling Tian let out a breath of air before standing up on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger and starting to cultivate his tempest point. The piercingly cold, strong winds that assault his face caused Duan Ling Tian to gradually merge into the wind, and it was as if he was an infant that had returned to the embrace of his mother. This feeling was extremely warm. Wind force. Advanced wind force. Presently, Duan Ling Tian had comprehended advanced wind force, and if he wanted to advance a step further, then it was to comprehend wind concept. Even if it was the lowest level of wind concept, the first level wind concept, the strength contained within it was far from something advanced wind force could compare to. Advanced wind force contained the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths, whereas first level wind concept instead contained the strength of 10,000 ancient mammoths, or in other words, the strength of an ancient horned dragon. Duan Ling Tian merged into the wind. At the beginning, he was still cultivating tempest force, yet he'd gradually started to execute whirlwind, and his figure completely merged into the wind and moved along with the wind. The whirlwind that was at the perfection stage was executed to the limit by Duan Ling Tian. Fortunately, the three-eyed flame tiger's back was sufficiently vast, otherwise, it would utterly be impossible for Duan Ling Tian to execute whirlwind without restraint. Time flew by. Half a month later, the three-eyed flame tiger's figure stopped in midair. I'm still slightly lacking. Along with the vanishing of the wind that assaulted his face, Duan Ling Tian's figure appeared once more, and he sighed. Presently, he'd already touched the threshold to wind concept, and he only lacked a turning point that would allow him to comprehend the first-level wind concept. Big Brother Ling Tian, we've arrived at the Eastern Mulberry Empire. There's still another month from the time you agreed upon with that owner of the Jade Sword. Do you have any plans? Han Xuanai's voice entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears in a timely manner. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed as he looked down at the vast city below, and then he said with a light smile, "Let's go around this Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city during this month. We'll head to Pheasant Ridge after a month." Han Xuanai had no objections towards Duan Ling Tian's suggestion. "Big guy, you go to Pheasant Ridge and wait for us first. In the future, remember to come as soon as you're called. Otherwise, you understand." Han Xuanai glanced at the three-eyed flame tiger with deep meaning in her eyes, and it caused the three-eyed flame tiger to be unable to refrain from shuddering. After the three-eyed flame tiger left, Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai entered the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire together. After all, it was an imperial city of an empire, and the area it occupied was equivalent to the Darkstone Empire's imperial city. After Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai entered the city, they casually found a restaurant to eat. Hiss hiss, the tongues of the two little pythons flicked out like bolts of lightning as they seized the food on the table before Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai, and it caused the two of them to be unable to refrain from shaking their heads. Big brother Ling Tian, were little black and little white always so gluttonous? Han Xuanai looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked with a smile. More or less. Duan Ling Tian nodded, and then he called over the attendant to order another 2 tables of dishes for the two little pythons to eat by themselves. Hiss hiss, instantly, the two little pythons become excited. Thank you, big brother. Thank you, big brother. At practically the same moment, the voice of a young boy and young girl entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears via voice transmission, and they were filled with delight. It was precisely the voices of the two little pythons. At the same time that Duan Ling Tian's face revealed a smile from seeing the two little pythons eating happily, his eyes revealed slight worry. This scene just happened to be captured by Han Xuanai. Big brother Ling Tian, what are you thinking about? Han Xuanai asked. You seem to be worried about something. Duan Ling Tian sighed and slowly spoke of the matter of the little gold mouse, without concealing anything. Actually, there was no need to conceal anything. Jade-eyed heavenly mouse? Han Xuanai was surprised. Big brother Ling Tian, there was actually another jade-eyed heavenly mouse by your side? How did you encounter it? This jade-eyed heavenly mouse is the descendant of a saint beast, and in terms of natural talent and potential, it isn't inferior to the current little black and little white. I bid for her during an auction, said Duan Ling Tian. Auction? Han Xuanai's gaze become weird. Bid for a jade-eyed heavenly mouse from an auction? Who was so wasteful to the point of selling a jade-eyed heavenly mouse in an auction? Even if it was in the foreign lands, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse was an extremely rare existence, and whenever an infant jade-eyed heavenly mouse appeared, it would practically cause a slaughter. There would utterly be no one that was so wasteful of God's gifts to the point of selling a jade-eyed heavenly mouse in an auction. That person thought little gold was only an ordinary gold for a mouse. Duan Ling Tian perceived Han Xuanai's bewilderment, and he explained. Han Xuanai came to a sudden understanding, and at the same time, she consoled Duan Ling Tian. Big brother Ling Tian, don't worry. Little gold will be fine. As a mouse-type demon beast, the jade-eyed heavenly mouse's intelligence far exceeds ordinary demon beasts. I hope so. Duan Ling Tian nodded, yet the worry in his eyes didn't reduce in the slightest. After they finished eating, Duan Ling Tian brought Han Xuanai and the two little pythons along to find an inn to stay temporarily. Normally, besides cultivating, he would take a stroll all around the imperial city with Han Xuanai. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. In the sky above the imperial city, a figure was like a bolt of lightning that ceaselessly flashed about. Swift like the find, fast like lightning. Suddenly, a wave of ear-piercing howls of the wind sounded out. In the sky, the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that flashed in the sky along with the figure that was like a bolt of lightning suddenly trembled before instantly dispersing. Meanwhile, the speed of the figure that moved along with the wind instantly increased a few times. In the sky, after the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dispersed, an enormous silhouette spiraled down, brandishing its claws and baring its fangs. It was precisely an ancient horned dragon silhouette. First-level wind concept. I've finally comprehended it. Meanwhile, the swiftly flashing figure stopped, and it revealed its true form. A handsome young man with starry eyes and sword-shaped brows. The young man wore violet clothes that fluttered in the wind, and at the same time that he muttered to himself, his figure lowered down to actually sit cross-legged in the sky before closing his eyes like an old monk in meditation. After a short moment, a vast origin energy instantly swept out from the then young man's body. For a time, the surrounding mist and clouds were all swept away. Meanwhile, The young man slowly opened his eyes. I've finally broken through. The young man's eyes were like a dazzling array of stars, and a wisp of a dense smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Whoosh! Along with a command in the young man's heart, his gaze lightly raised as origin energy that were like flames arose on his body. At the same time, two ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed into form in the sky above him, and then they spiraled down and ceaselessly danced about. First level of the Void Initiation stage. The violet-clothed young man was precisely Duan Ling Tian. After many days, he'd finally comprehended first-level wind concept. Moreover, his cultivation that had been advanced to the peak of the 9th level of the Void Prying stage had broken through to the Void Initiation stage in one go. Wind concept. Duan Ling Tian muttered as his figure flashed to merge with the wind. At this moment, he felt as if he'd merged into one with the wind in the heavens and the earth, and they weren't separate beings anymore. This is wind concept? How miraculous! Duan Ling Tian could clearly feel that at this moment, when he utilized the energy of the wind concept, it was as if he was drawing assistance from the energy of all the wind in nature. He moved like a shadow. Presently, Duan Ling Tian utilized his movement technique as if he was controlling his limbs. Tempest Point. With a raise of his hand, Duan Ling Tian pointed out with his finger. Swish. Instantly, his origin energy point force whistled out along with first-level wind concept and advanced lightning force as it shot towards high above in the sky and vanished behind the clouds and mist. In the sky above Duan Ling Tian, 3 ancient horned dragon silhouettes were surrounded by 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes, like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. If I utilize a spirit weapon, my strength would be even stronger. Duan Ling Tian stopped moving once again, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. First-level wind concept. Void Initiation stage cultivation. This was his current strength. Besides that, I've broken through to the Void Initiation stage and am already able to officially start cultivating the 6th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Earth Dragon form. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed, and his mind was completely immersed in the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor that were related to the 6th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Earth Dragon form. The Earth Dragon form wasn't only the mental cultivation method for the 6th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique. It even carried a high-grade Earth rank defense martial skill with it, the Earth Dragon's Barrier. The 4th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Wind WIRM form, helped me to comprehend wind force. The 5th form, the Lightning WIRM form, helped me to comprehend lightning force. The 6th form, the Earth Dragon form, will assist me to comprehend earth force. Besides that, the Earth Dragon form carries along a high-grade Earth rank defensive martial skill, the Earth Dragon's Barrier. The Earth Dragon's Barrier will be the first defensive martial skill I'm cultivating after the Earth Dragon's Shield, and it's able to combine with the Earth Force and Earth concept to possess extraordinary defensive ability. The smile on Duan Ling Tian's face became more and more brilliant. He understood that since the instant his cultivation stepped into the Void Initiation stage, his strength had already undergone a tremendous change. Earth Force. Duan Ling Tian's figure flashed out, stepping on the sky like a swimming dragon to descend onto the boundless ground outside the Eastern Mulberry Empire. Bang! Duan Ling Tian's descended onto the ground, and his figure followed along with the momentum to lay down, and then the origin energy on his body raged to ceaselessly fuse into the ground. This was the best method to comprehend Earth Force that was recorded into the Earth Dragon form, and it was also the method the Rebirth Martial Emperor discovered all those years ago. It was because that the Rebirth Martial Emperor had lain on the boundless ground for 3 days and 3 nights that he was able to comprehend Earth Force. Duan Ling Tian's origin energy ceaselessly gushed out to become the axis between him and the earth, forcefully connecting him and the earth. A day passed, and Duan Ling Tian didn't have any feeling. 2 days passed, and he still felt nothing. During Rebirth Martial Emperor's first lifetime, he lay down just like me and comprehended Earth Force after 3 days and nights. Whereas I still haven't sensed even a trace of Earth Force until now, and I haven't even sensed a Force seed. Duan Ling Tian was slightly helpless. Just like this, The third day passed as well, whereas Duan Ling Tian had finally sensed a trace of Earth Force and had comprehended an Earth Force seed. On the fifth day, Duan Ling Tian's origin energy still tirelessly fused into the ground and became more and more intimate with the earth. As I lie on this boundless earth, my restless heart seems to have calmed down. Before this boundless earth, everything seemed to be not worth mentioning. Gradually, Duan Ling Tian understood the ground more and more. At this moment, he lay on the ground as if he was laying in the embrace of his mother. Night descended, and strands of dense earthen yellow aura finally arose on Duan Ling Tian's body. I've finally comprehended elementary earth force. Duan Ling Tian's face revealed a brilliant smile. At the same time, he sat up and the origin energy on his body pulsated before transforming into numerous strands of dragon-shaped origin energy that coiled around his body. Within these numerous strands of dragon-shaped origin energy, strands of earthen yellow energy gradually leaped up and fused within it. Innumerable strands of dragon-shaped origin energy combined with the earthen yellow-colored energy in the end to transform into a defensive chi barrier that twined around Duan Ling Tian's body. If one were to look carefully, one would be able to see that within this layer of defensive chi barrier was numerous earthen yellow energy that condensed into numerous dragon-shaped energies, and they ceaselessly flowed and flashed within the defensive chi barrier. I've comprehended elementary earth force, and this high-grade earth-ranked defensive martial skill, Earth Dragon's Barrier, can be considered to have stepped into the initial stage. But this stage of Earth Dragon's Barrier is only effective in withstanding attacks from martial artists at the 7th level of the Void Prying stage or below. Only after I comprehend half-step advanced Earth Force and allow the Earth Dragon's Barrier to step into the Master stage would it be of help to me now. This was something that Duan Ling Tian was extremely clear about. A defensive martial skill wasn't all-powerful, and it possessed numerous restrictions. Presently, only 3 more days remained before the agreed-upon time of meeting with the possessors of the other jade swords. I ought to return already. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart before soaring into the sky and returning to the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire. Big brother Ling Tian, you've broken through. Duan Ling Tian had just returned to the inn and had just seen Han Xuanai when the changes that occurred on him were see-through by her. Duan Ling Tian wasn't surprised that his cultivation was seen through by Han Xuanai, and he lightly smiled as he nodded. Congratulations, big brother Ling Tian. Han Xuanai lightly smiled as she congratulated Duan Ling Tian. There are 3 days more before the time to gather with the possessors of the other jade swords. Big brother Ling Tian, have you contacted them during this period of time? Han Xuanai looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked. No. Duan Ling Tian shook his head. During this period of time, he'd been busy cultivating. So how could he have time to care about anything else? I think that some of them have surely arrived at the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city at this time. It's even to the extent that they're possibly staying in some of the inns in the imperial city. Han Xuanai guessed. Perhaps, after we return to the room, we can contact them. Duan Ling Tian nodded, and then he said, It's late, sleep earlier. Han Xuanai nodded, and her eyes were still filled with excitement when she returned to her room. This little girl is even more excited than me. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. After Duan Ling Tian returned to his room, his gaze flashed. I've finally advanced my cultivation to the Void Initiation stage before entering the Sword Monarch's treasure. After washing up, Duan Ling Tian lay on his bed and withdrew the jade sword, and his origin energy fused into the void transmission inscription in the jade sword. Instantly, a sonorous voice that seemed familiar entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears. Brother, you finally appeared. We'll be able to meet each other in a few days. I'm really anticipating it. Me too. Duan Ling Tian recalled who the owner of this sonorous voice was. All those years ago, when he was still in the Crimson Sky Kingdom and had contacted the other possessors of the Jade Swords for the first time via the voice transmission inscription in the Jade Sword, and he'd precisely contacted this person. I've already arrived at the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire. Where are all of you? Another voice sounded out. This was a completely unfamiliar voice to Duan Ling Tian, and it ought to be a possessor of another Jade Sword. I've arrived at the Imperial City as well. I haven't arrived yet. I'm still on the way. I ought to be able to arrive at Pheasant Ridge on time, 3 days from now. I'll be able to arrive at the Imperial City of Eastern Mulberry City tomorrow. Subsequently, numerous voices sounded out, and they were all the possessors of the other jade swords. Right, brother. Have you brought a friend? According to our agreement, every one of us is able to bring along a person to enter the Sword Monarch's treasure. Suddenly, the owner of the sonorous voice spoke once again, and he was obviously speaking to Duan Ling Tian. Yes, I've brought a friend. Duan Ling Tian replied. Originally, he was worried that the possessors of the other jade swords might have objections about him bringing Xuan Nai to head to the Sword Monarch's treasure with him. But now it would seem that it wasn't rude to bring Xuan Nai with him. But, with Xuan Nai's strength, even if it was to kill everyone at the instant the Sword Monarch's treasure opens up, it wouldn't be a difficult thing. Duan Ling Tian recalled Han Xuan Nai's strength, and he felt a slight chill run down his spine. Right? If Xuan Nai kills everyone at the instant the Sword Monarch's treasure opens up, then wouldn't Xuan Nai and I be able to monopolize all the treasures in the Sword Monarch's treasure? When he thought up to here, Duan Ling Tian's breathing became slightly hurried. Dawn the next day, Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai both walked out of their rooms before leaving the inn, and then they had breakfast in a nearby restaurant. Not long after, the restaurant was seated full with guests. I heard that the Tang clan will auction off a treasure at the square at the center of the city this afternoon. At that time, we can properly join in the fun. Doesn't the Tang clan have its own auction house? Why aren't they auctioning it in the auction house? I don't know about that, but seeing how the Tang clan is giving wide publicity to it, that treasure is probably extraordinary. I'm interested as well after hearing what you said. Let's go together when the time comes. A wave of discussion sounded out from the table beside Duan Ling Tian, and it was 3 young men wearing embroidered clothes that were chatting idly. Big brother Ling Tian, let's go join in the fun in the afternoon as well. Han Xuan Nai's eyes glowed, and she was obviously interested in the treasure of the Tang clan. Okay. Duan Ling Tian nodded as he was interested as well. It would be great if it's the ageless root. Duan Ling Tian sighed in his heart. But he knew that that was practically an impossible thing. Even if the Tang clan had an ageless root, it would probably be impossible for them to give so much publicity to it. The center square of the imperial city of Eastern Mulberry Empire was undoubtedly an existence that was similar to the center square at the imperial city of Darkstone Empire, and it was extremely bustling with streams of people gushing about. At that day, the Darkstone Empire's Young Genius competition was held in a similar place of the imperial city of Darkstone Empire. As far as Duan Ling Tian was concerned, since the Tang clan was doing it in such a grand scale, that treasure would surely be a publicly acknowledged treasure and not the ageless root that many people would be unable to recognize. After they ate their breakfast, they started to walk around the imperial city. All along the way, Duan Ling Tian could hear that every corner of the imperial city was now filled with the news about the treasure the Tang clan would auction off in the afternoon. We must go earlier in the afternoon so that we can occupy a good spot. It would be great if I was a martial artist at the void prying stage or above. There are many spots in the sky. Yeah, if it's an existence at the void prying stage or above, they utterly have no need of fighting for spots on the ground. Duan Ling Tian was able to hear these discussions from all over. Big brother Ling Tian, I'm more and more interested towards the thing that the Tang clan is going to auction off later in the afternoon. Han Xuan Nai giggled as her eyes that were like water revealed a trace of slyness. Xuan Nai, if you like it later, I'll buy it for you. Duan Ling Tian was rather confident now. All along the way, the wealth in his possession had already accumulated to an extremely terrifying degree. During these past few years, not only had he found and plundered a great amount of wealth, even the spatial rings of the people that died in his hands contained a great deal of wealth. His wealth accumulated more and more. Up until today, he was slightly unable to remember exactly how much wealth was in his possession. Big brother Ling Tian, if I'm really interested, then I'll directly seize it. Is there any need for you to spend money? Han Xuan Nai blinked her sly eyes as she smiled. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard this. Right, with Xuan Nai's strength, It wasn't difficult to seize a treasure from the hands of the Eastern Mulberry Empire's Tang clan. After all, even if it was the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire, King Yong was extremely terrified before Xuanai. The strongest expert in this Eastern Mulberry Empire would at most be at the same level as King Yong and was most probably inferior to Xuanai. At the afternoon, Duan Ling Tian brought along Han Xuanai and the two little pythons to fly in the air and arrive at the center square of the imperial city. So many people. Duan Ling Tian looked down at the center square. He noticed there was a huge crowd of people, to the point he could see numerous heads ceaselessly flowing about, and it was extremely bustling. Presently, there were many void-prying stage martial artists high above in the sky. These martial artists had mostly come to join in the fun. The Tang clan made such a commotion today. I wonder what treasure they want to auction off. Someone spoke curiously. No matter what treasure it is, we must properly widen our knowledge today. The Tang clan has never sought popularity by issuing shocking statements before. I presume they're really going to auction of an extraordinary treasure today. More and more martial artists at the void-prying stage and above converged and discussed animatedly. Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai stood in the sky closest to the square. Presently, a high platform stood at the center of the square. This high platform had just been established, and it was obviously specially built by the Tang clan for the sake of the auction this afternoon. Whoosh! A young man in embroidered clothes flashed over from far away, and he descended not far from Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai. Duan Ling Tian didn't have any reaction to this, whereas Han Xuanai had frowned instead, and then she turned to the side to look at the young man. "You go away. Don't stand beside me and my big brother Ling Tian and disturb us." Obviously, Han Xuanai had taken this area of the sky that she and Duan Ling Tian stood in to be her own private territory. The embroidered clothed young man was first stunned when he heard Han Xuanai, and when he turned around and saw Han Xuanai's appearance, he revealed a smile of lust. "Little lady, don't worry, big brother guarantees to not disturb you." "But little lady, you're really beautiful. Smile for big brother." The young man in embroidered clothes spoke frivolously as he flew forward to approach Han Xuanai. At the same time, he stretched out his hand towards Han Xuanai's chin. Duan Ling Tian glanced at the embroidered clothed young man with pity. He knew that misfortune was about to strike this fellow. At practically the instant that this though emerged in Duan Ling Tian's mind. Swish, swish, swish. Two ear-piercing howls resounded out. A black and a white bolt of lightning flashed out from beneath Han Xuanai's sleeve and flashed straight towards the young man. In the next moment, a bloody hole had appeared on both the chest and throat of the young man, and dazzling and resplendent fresh blood sprayed out from the holes. The young man didn't even have the time to emit a shrill cry, and he maintained the posture of wanting to touch Han Xuanai's chin as he directly felt downwards. Bang! The young man descended onto the high platform that was built at the center of the square, and he was completely devoid of any signs of life. Dead. Instantly the surroundings went into an uproar. Isn't this the Bai clan's third young master, Bai Fan? Exactly, it's Bai Fan. I truly never imagined that this Bai Fan would walk unhindered in the imperial city of our Eastern Mulberry Empire for so long, yet has fallen here today. Yeah, I truly never imagined this. Waves of exclamations sounded out from all over in a timely manner. Of course, most of them were taking pleasure in his misfortune. Obviously, Bai Fan's public reputation wasn't good. Hiss hiss. Meanwhile, the two little pythons returned to Han Xuanai's hand, and they glared fiercely at Bai Fan's corpse. "All right, he's already dead." Han Xuanai smiled lightly, and she lightly rubbed the little heads of the two little fellows. The two little fellows instantly closed their eyes in enjoyment. "Xuanai, even I feel slightly jealous from seeing little black and little white be so intimate with you." Duan Ling Tian joked. But Han Xuanai was able to perceive that he was joking, yet the two little pythons weren't able to. Swish, swish. In the next moment, a black and a white bolt of lightning flashed out from Han Xuanai's hand and descended onto Duan Ling Tian's shoulder in the end. Hiss hiss. Hiss hiss. The two little pythons flicked their tongues to lick Duan Ling Tian's face as if they were consoling him. Duan Ling Tian held the two little pythons in his hand, and his eyes were filled with gentleness. Presently, Little White had followed behind Little Black to break through to the third level of the Void initiation stage as well. That Bai Clan's third young master, Bai Fan, was a void-prying stage martial artist at most, and he wasn't able to resist in the slightest before the two little pythons. He hadn't even reacted before he was killed. Fan. Right at this moment, a voice that was like a thunderclap and contained boundless rage sounded out from afar. Duan Ling Tian slightly turned around, and he could see a middle-aged man under the escort of two old men was flying over with a speed that instantly increased to the limit. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man plunged down to descend onto the high platform at the center of the square, and then he embraced Bai Fan in his arms as he cried out sorrowfully. Fan! Fan! It's the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming. Looks like not only the Bai clan's third young master, Bai Fan, came to join in the fun today, even his father, Bai Ming, has come. Bai Fan probably came with his father and had arrived a step before him, yet was killed in the end. That young man and young girl, and the snake-type demon beast by their side, are probably going to be struck with misfortune. The surrounding crowd of spectators whispered in discussion. Most of the people glanced at Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai with gazes of pity. But Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai weren't affected in the slightest, and they stood on the spot in the air with carefree expression as if their expression wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed before them. Whoosh! Whoosh! Meanwhile, the middle-aged man brought along the two old men to fly over, and they stood not far away before and behind Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai, as if they were preventing Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai from fleeing. After that, Bai Ming finally recovered his senses, and he who was extremely aggrieved and enraged embraced his dead son as he soared into the sky to form a triangular shape with the two old men to surround Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai in the center. You dare kill the son of Bai Ming. I'll make both of you pay with your lives today. Bai Ming gnashed his teeth and spoke word by word. At this moment, Bai Ming was enraged to the limit. In his entire lifetime, he'd been obsessed in the martial Tao, and he only had a single son. Now, his son had died because of the people before him. Bai clan's second master? Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at Bai Ming. When you speak these words, shouldn't you first ask why I would kill your son? Earlier, if it wasn't for that Bai Fan raising his hand against Han Xuan Nai, Little Black and Little White wouldn't have launched a killing blow at him. There's no need. Bai Ming snorted coldly, and his eyes were filled with a sheen of ruthlessness. No matter for what reason, or because of what. Since both of you have killed my son, then you have to buried with him. When he spoke up to hear, the origin energy on Bai Ming's body raged and skyrocketed. In the sky above him, 10 ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed into form before spiraling down, and they emitted an extremely strong oppressive feeling. 7th level of the Void initiation stage. As expected of the Bai clan's second master that's able to possesses the same strength as the Bai clan's ancestor and be one of the two great experts of the Bai clan, he deserves his reputation. Now that this Bai clan's second master is infuriated, this young man and young girl are probably dead for sure. They were too rash to actually kill Bai Fan. Could it be that they didn't know that Bai Fan was the most important thing to the Bai clan's second master? The surrounding people silently mourned for Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuan Nai. No matter for what reason, or because of what. Since both of you have killed my son, then you have to buried with him. Bai Ming's words angered Duan Ling Tian to the point his expression sank slightly. Big brother Ling Tian, you can't get through to some people with reason. To them, strength is sufficient to replace any reason. Han Xuan Nai had a calm expression, and she didn't get angry from Bai Ming's words. Or perhaps, from the beginning until the end, she didn't take Bai Ming seriously at all. Yes, Xuan Nai, do as you wish in this matter. Duan Ling Tian nodded, and then he didn't say anything further as he coldly watched from the sidelines. Kill them, Bai Ming shouted out explosively, and he held Bai Fan's corpse in one hand as the other hand slapped out like a lead fan. Bang! Waves of red-colored energy leaped up on the palm that origin energy raged upon, and then is swept out to blast towards Duan Ling Tian, wanting to directly blast Duan Ling Tian to death. At the same time, Another 6 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared above Bai Ming. 6th level fire concept. Whoosh. Bai Ming's palm assaulted over, causing Duan Ling Tian to feel an exceedingly scorching strong wind assault his face, and the scorching aura grew greater and greater as it ceaselessly surged. In the end, Duan Ling Tian's forehead couldn't help but start to sweat. Although Duan Ling Tian felt extremely great pressure when faced with Bai Ming's palm strike that approached menacingly, he didn't have any intention of dodging. He stood on the spot without moving like a mountain. Has this young man gone mad? He still dares stand stupidly there at a time like this. Many surrounding spectators were dumbstruck. Perhaps he feels that he can't escape death today at any rate, so he directly abandoned all resistance. Do you think he can live before the Bai clan's second master? Some people had different thoughts. You have a point. His words obtained the agreement of many people. At this moment, most of the people looked at Duan Ling Tian with gazes filled with pity. They didn't think that Duan Ling Tian would be able to survive under Bai Ming's palm strike. For a time, the atmosphere at the scene was slightly oppressive. Right at this moment, a sudden voice broke the oppressive atmosphere at the scene. You dare attack Big Brother Ling Tian? You're courting death. Under the gazes of everyone present, the yellow-clothed young girl that stood in the air spoke. At the same time that she spoke, the people present didn't see the yellow-clothed young girl make any movements. Whoosh. In the next moment, an aura that was icy cold to the limit suddenly exploded out in the sky, and it covered the heaven and the earth as it swept down, causing the people present to be frozen to the point they couldn't help but shudder. When they returned to their senses, they saw a scene that they couldn't forget in their entire lifetimes. They saw the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming's, who was attacking the violet-clothed young man, stop in the air, and he transformed into an ice sculpture. Along with him, Bai Fan's corpse that was in his embrace transformed into an ice sculpture. The people present could clearly see that the flame concept on Bai Ming's body had already completely been suppressed by the ice that enveloped him now. Not only that, the origin energy on his body was ceaselessly dispersing. After a short moment, the origin energy on Bai Ming's body vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, his body lost its final reliance, and it crashed only the ground along with the ice that covered his body. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and everyone clearly saw that Bai Ming's entire body fell onto the ground and shattered along with the ice that covered his body, transforming into countless pieces of ice. Bai Ming, the Bai clan's second master, one of only 2 7th-level void initiation stage experts of the Bai clan, was dead. The scene was deathly silent as most of the people were dumbstruck as they looked at the shattered ice that covered the entire ground. A single complete piece couldn't be seen amongst these shattered ices. Ice concept. In next to no time, someone exclaimed out in surprise with a trembling voice. His words caused everyone present to be unable to refrain from recovering from their shock, and they unconsciously looked at the yellow-clothed young girl that was high above in the sky with eyes that were filled with terror and reverence. This yellow-clothed young girl was at most 15 or 16 in age from her appearance. In the beginning, many people were extremely shocked when they saw the yellow-clothed young girl appear. A 15 or 16-year-old girl standing in the air was undoubtedly saying from another angle that her cultivation was at the void prying stage or above. This was something that was already sufficient to shock people to the point they were speechless for a long time. But now, the yellow-clothed young girl had shocked everyone once more. As soon as the young girl finished speaking, she caused a 7th-level void initiation stage martial artist to transform into an ice sculpture that plunged to the ground and died a graveless death. Such shocking ability was something that all of them had seen for the first time, and shock and terror arose from the bottom of their hearts. Most importantly, all of this was caused by a young girl, and they didn't even clearly see how she attacked when the Bai clan's second master was already gone. Was it really her who attacked? Many people wondered as they didn't dare believe all this was true. A 15 or 16-year-old young girl had killed an existence at the 7th level of the void prying stage. Even if it was in the entire foreign lands, probably no one would be able to achieve this, right? Let alone a mere Eastern Mulberry Empire. I didn't see clearly if it was her who attacked, but I can be sure that even if it wasn't her, It was a person that was protecting her from the shadows that launched the attack. Looks like her identity isn't simple. She actually has an expert that's able to instantly kill the Bai clan's second master concealed by her side. That expert is an existence that has comprehended the extremely rare ice concept. Supposedly, amongst the various concepts of nature, the ice concept can be considered to be a concept that's at the top. Now that I've seen it today, it's really worthy of its reputation. It's too terrifying. Sealing a person in ice in the blink of an eye and transforming the person into an ice sculpture before causing him to fall into pieces by himself. The surrounding crowd of spectators discussed without end, and their tone was filled with fear towards Han Xuanai. Of course, there were also some people with comparatively high cultivations present, and they'd noticed the numerous ancient horned dragon silhouettes that had flashed above Han Xuanai. Although they didn't clearly see how many ancient horned dragon silhouettes there were in total, they could be sure that it was indeed this yellow-clothed young girl that had attacked earlier to seal the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming, in ice. Second master. The two old men that followed Bai Ming looked at the shattered ice that covered the entire ground, and their withered bodies lightly trembled. The scene before their eyes had exceeded their expectations. The second master was one of the two great experts of their Bai clan, and his strength was equal to their Bai clan's ancestor. But in the blink of an eye, he'd instead been killed, and they felt it was slightly difficult to accept this. Do you two old fellows want to continue staying here and take revenge for that second master and third young master of yours? Or do the two of you want to K off from my sight? Han Xuanai's gaze lazily descended onto the two old men, and her voice that was like an aureole contained slight impatience mixed within. The two old men's bodies trembled as if they were struck by lightning when they heard this. In the next moment, they didn't dare hesitate to flee hastily towards the distance, and they vanished from the eyes of everyone in the center square. What a joke! Even the second master had been killed instantly. They would only be courting death if they stayed. They knew clearly in their hearts that their Bai clan's second master and third young master had offended an existence that the entire Bai clan couldn't afford to offend.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.